My talk is a very basic talk. And when we look at the anatomy of knee kinematics, you have asymmetric medial lateral condyles, you have asymmetric tibia, you have a 4-bar linkage with the ACL, PCL, you have the medial meniscus which is relatively tight attached to the deep MCL, and the lateral meniscus which is mobile and slides off when the knee is bending. So a typical knee has got lateral pivoting movement in extension and a medial pivoting movement in flexion. So it's not a very simple thing to replicate. And if you look at these MR pictures, that's how the knee looks in deep flexion. You can see how the medial side is contained by the medial meniscus, and the lateral side, the lateral meniscus just slides off, and the condyle goes off the femur, and that gives us deep flexion beyond 140 degrees. And it is too simplistic to suggest that a compromise like a total knee arthroplasty will ever be able to do this sort of knee kinematic replication with the available designs that we have. So that is the basic disclaimer I want to give you at the beginning of this talk. And we all understand that this 4-bar linkage system with the intact collateral ligaments and the native morphology of the knee is which drives the native kinematics of the knee, and just replicating the bone cuts in a particular way is not likely to give us normal knee kinematics. And when we look at the way the TKRs function, we know that the normal rollback doesn't happen. In fact, in cruciate retaining knees, there is a paradoxical anterior roll forward, and in a PS knees, about 60 to 70% of the femoral rollback is replicated because of the cam post engagement mechanism. Now, why does this controversy arise when we have a well-functioning surgery for such a long time? I think this particular paper set the cat among the pigeons. The concept of constitutional varus, which was published, showing that nearly 32% of normal men and 70% of women have a constitutional varus of more than 3 degrees, which is beyond whatever is the published acceptable criteria for long-term outcomes after TKR. And when you examine the paper itself by Merrill, Ritter et al., it was based on a short leg radiograph. And we all know how inaccurate short leg radiograph is. And all this hullabaloo has been created plus or minus 3 based on a study of 6,000 knees on a short leg radiograph, which suggested that the outcomes will be better if the varus valgus is plus or minus 3. We actually don't know whether the long leg film would have suggested a plus or minus 3. And the mechanical alignment, which is done manually, still we do not know whether that plus or minus 3 is achieved, or you are actually balancing the knee in some sort of adjusted situation, as we were discussing in the morning. And again, this concept about patient satisfaction, we really don't know why the patients are unhappy. Could it be an unindicated knee replacement to start with, or what is the reason why these people are unhappy? It's because of something to do with their pain threshold levels or the psychological factors. So it's very unlikely that just doing a change in some alignment philosophy is likely to satisfy the patient. We discussed this. A uni probably is the closest to a native knee because both cruciates are intact, the lateral meniscus is intact. It functions like a kinematic knee. When you do kinematic alignment, as I said earlier, you will need to do some sort of replication of an ACL function for it to really function like a kinematic knee. And if you don't do it, some of them do have symptomatic instability. Now, these are all the personalized alignment strategies which we have: kinematic alignment, inverse kinematic alignment, restricted kinematic alignment, and functional alignment, which could be narrow or wide boundary based, and which could have a mechanical or a kinematic start point. Now, what I feel personally is that the kinematic alignment should have limits, because it may not be desirable to recreate pathologic anatomy which has contributed to premature wear in the knee in the first place. So why did the knee degenerate? Why did it become arthritic? It was because it had some sort of a suboptimal kinematics to begin with. That is a question. And I personally believe that the pathanatomies must be modified to accommodate current available implant fixation and polyethylene tolerance limits. So the problem and the weak link still is the implant. It is not the alignment. It is how the polyethylene functions, what is its functioning with respect to. So if you create a normally functioning knee with the kinematics, is the polyethylene able to tolerate it over the long period of time without wear and without polyethylene breakage itself? And whether the implant bone interface will be able to tolerate these issues. And this is a landmark paper by Vendetoli, who found that to answer Dhanasekar's questions, that only 50% of patients had a neutral HKA with LDFA 3 degrees cancelling out an MPTA of 3 degrees. And almost 50% of them were outliers. So if you took the limits to plus or minus 5 degrees, then 80% of the population in their country was covered. We really don't have any data on Indian patients as to what is the normal distribution of MPTA and LDFA is in the different things. The CPAC classification system has come out. Some of the merits of kinematic alignment is that when they looked at the intercompartmental pressure differences with a mechanically aligned and a restricted kinematic or a kinematically aligned knee, they found that the pressure differences were more efficient with a kinematically aligned protocol, where the medial and lateral pressures were actually closer to each other. So this is one of the merits of this particular alignment philosophy. But the problem with mechanical surgeries, what we do with conventional, is we really do not have a measure as to what is the intercompartmental pressure difference between the medial and lateral compartment, and we still go with a lot of feel and experience as to how we are going to balance this knee and based on how your own knees have lasted. What about the sagittal plane alignment and the rotational plane alignment? So these are unexplored territories, and this can only be possible when we have a three-dimensional planning strategy which is available intraoperatively. The naked eye can restore the coronal plane alignment to some level, but we all know that the sagittal plane alignment and the rotational alignment have got significant error when we do a conventional manual-based surgical techniques. Now the question here is the extreme alignment a safe option, or is it not a safe option? Stephen Howell and his group have published that there is no difference in outcome at 10 years. But is it really, as Dr. Ashok Rajgopal rightly pointed out and has repeatedly been saying, and that we must look at him for what he says because of his sheer experience and the cases he has done, does this 2-3 degrees of change in alignment really translate into better patient outcomes? I personally feel it may not translate. It is another way of doing knee replacement surgery, where you may have a more elegant way where you're releasing the soft tissues lesser and lesser. And I'm sure most of my mechanical alignment advocates also would agree that the amount of soft tissue releases has come down significantly because of our better understanding. So if you don't give anything, that particular understanding about the ability to handle the soft tissue contractures in a better way is one which we can do. The intercompartmental pressure differences in randomized controlled studies and meta-analysis have shown that there is not much difference between mechanical and kinematic, and the registry data show that 3% failure at 10 years in both these systems. And we can have all these start points where morphology is the start point for the kinematic alignment, soft tissue release is the start point for mechanical alignment, and alignment is the start point for the functional balancing and the restricted kinematic alignment sort of protocols. To conclude, I would say that kinematic alignment has opened our eyes as to one other way as to how you can do the knee. It will probably drive the research into developing better implants which will replicate both ACL and PCL functions and will give us motion guided technology for us to do a better feeling stable knee which will last for a long period of time. Till that time, I think mechanical alignment still is the gold standard. Thank you very much.